welcome back onto a very interesting subject, and one that I know many of us is kind of still struggle with, or maybe that's understating how our understanding of things like blockchain and cryptocurrency go. But Switzerland's Minister of Economic Affairs, Education and Research is currently in South Africa leading a high-level delegation to pursue, among others, a collaboration in the fourth industrial revolution, particularly focusing on blockchain technology. Now, Switzerland and South Africa began engaging in blockchain technology in the ambit of bilateral education, research and innovation cooperation in 2019. And since there have been successive delegation visits in both countries, and these have been catalyzed by the mutual interest in this emerging technology. Now, with the aim to continue the story of successful collaboration around blockchain technology, the Swiss Embassy has now actively engaged in further building the ecosystem with academia and industry. And the University of Cape Town has been a crucial partner of Switzerland in fostering bilateral cooperation. So for further discussion on this and hopefully better understanding of this technology, we are joined by Professor Co-Pierre Georg, who is a professor at UCT. Mathias Ruch is a capitalist, venture capitalist and CEO and founder at CVVC. Veronoque Haller is deputy head of mission at the Swiss Embassy. And Julian Kanjere is a blockchain entrepreneur. To all our guests, thanks so much for joining us this morning and welcome to Morning Live. Now, Veronoque, I'm going to start with you. Just in terms of establishing for us collaboration between South Africa and Switzerland, and of course, more pertinently in this sphere of innovation and blockchain technology. I think perhaps my guest just not being able to hear me at the moment. Let me just go back again. And Veronoque, if you can hear me, if you could perhaps establish for us a little bit in further detail, a little bit more, the relationship between South Africa and Switzerland in terms of innovation and the collaborative efforts that got us to this point of blockchain innovation and technology and how it's unfolding currently.
Good morning, Sakina. It is good to see you, and thanks for having me. Look, let me start by saying that Switzerland and South Africa do enjoy excellent bilateral relationship. And, you know, this visit is actually taking place in a very particular context, which is the post-pandemic context where everybody wants to rebuild relationship. People want to do business again. And to put it in context, the innovation collaboration between Switzerland and South Africa takes place in the framework of very strong economic and scientific partnership between both our countries. Let me just say, for example, that about 1/4 of Swiss direct foreign investments on the African continent take place in South Africa. And there are over 100 companies, Swiss companies, which are based in South Africa, and they create around 50,000 jobs for people here in South Africa. And those companies who are here, some of them here for more than 100 years, they are ready to do more. And I think we can place also the collaboration between Switzerland and South Africa on blockchain in the context of an agenda for transformation that Switzerland also would like to engage in this country. So we do have, besides the very strong trade and business ties between our countries, we also have a strong economic development programs that encompasses areas like financial management, entrepreneurship, strengthening of small and medium enterprises, vocational training, but also areas like green energy and just transition. So the Federal Council of Parliament, who is Minister for Trade and Industry, Higher Education, Science and Innovation, is here with a strong business and scientific delegation to look at what can we do more. Where are the ties who already exist? Better understand those the potential, but also better understand the challenges this country faces and how new technologies like blockchain can make a contribution.
So, Professor Co-Pierre Georg, let me come to you from the University of Cape Town. And of course, your perspective, especially when it comes to blockchain innovation and collaboration. Let's just understand how you got involved. I know there's quite a history of collaboration with the Swiss in this regard. But let's talk about blockchain and this particular project.
The University of Cape Town is very proud to have 19 out of 62 joint bilateral research projects with Switzerland for the South African side. And these research projects have led to over 170 million rand in funding for research. This funding goes directly into supporting the activities of researchers in a variety of subjects. Now, this collaboration is particularly important because the University of Cape Town was the first university in Africa to have a dedicated master's program in financial technology to enable our students to not just get a job, but actually create a job by becoming entrepreneurs and contributing to the overall ecosystem that is very strong in South Africa. In blockchain as a new emerging technology, as one of the fundamental technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, there is a critical skills deficit that we are trying to address, and these bilateral research cooperations help greatly in solving, this skills deficit and making sure that South Africa can benefit from the fourth industrial revolution.
Mathias, if I could bring you in as a venture capitalist and someone who's looking to invest quite a bit on the African continent and South Africa in particular in this regard, let's just debunk, blockchain technology. What exactly is it, and why would we want to invest in it, and what sort of innovation can it bring to the world that we currently live in?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having us. Very good question. So blockchain, it is, first of all, it is much more than just cryptocurrency speculation. And that's very important to understand. Now, we, as a VC, we are what we call a VC with a plus. So besides investing in startups, we also run our own ecosystem business. So we want to bring more to an ecosystem that is evolving here in Africa than just funding. So when you look at blockchain is actually a technology that has been around for some years now and is a combination of existing technologies. So, very broadly spoken, it's a combination of decentralized data storage. So instead of trusting one entity, one institution to store your data, you distribute the data on many participating nodes, servers, right? In order to make the transactions between these servers secure, you use cryptography. That's also a technology that has been around for decades. And in order to make sure that the data is the same on every server, you add a so-called consensus algorithm on top of that structure. And this brings a very secure system into many business areas, right? The data that is stored on the blockchain is immutable, but it's transparent. So everybody can look into it. Just to give you one example, one startup that we have invested in is called House Africa. What they do is a very simple thing. They put the land registry on the blockchain, which means it gets digitized. And when the data is stored on the blockchain, you don't have to trust any institution, but everybody can look at the records. It's immutable, it's transparent, and it's open to everybody. So that's one of the use cases that shows the potential of blockchain.
And that's very interesting because, and the land registry is an interesting one. So nobody can therefore go remove a title deed to a piece of land and take it elsewhere without everybody else being able to see it.
Correct. Yes. Once the data is stored on the blockchain, it is immutable.
And I'm just thinking already in terms of the sort of solutions that it could bring for South Africa, in terms of, for example, where we have a huge problem in, for example, the police with dockets going missing. So how would blockchain technology, for example, solve that problem, Mathias?
Can you say again, what's the problem? I didn't understand.
So if we have someone goes and lays a charge, let's say I go and lay a charge against you, Mathias Ruch. The police then, they note that, they open a docket for this case, but somewhere down the line, as things stand right now, someone is able to literally take that docket and make it disappear, or sell it back to Mathias, who's been, charged with something, and the docket just disappears. So if we were to apply blockchain technology to that particular aspect of our civil service, you would not be able to remove then that docket without everybody else in the value chain seeing that.
I understand, yes. So that is a use case that could be covered by blockchain. Some people refer to blockchain as a technology with integrated trust, which means you can transact between parties that don't have to trust each other. The trust is integrated in the system of blockchain, right? So in this very case, what it would do, it would remove the need of an intermediary. So intermediaries in many businesses, you have to trust that they store an information, for example, in this case, and they keep it safe, and it's not open to be tampered with. If you use blockchain in that case, which is basically information storage and verifying that the information is correct, you would use blockchain, you would digitize that process, you would identify the people, maybe also digitally, so you could be sure that the person that files this docker actually is the person she claims to be. You store the information on the blockchain, and once it sits there, nobody can tamper with it. But it's open and transparent, and everybody could look at it.
Let me just come back to Professor Co-Pierre Georg there. In terms of the work that has been done at UCT, I'm curious to know some of the sort of solutions that you may have looked at for the South African situation regarding blockchain technology and where it can be used.
Yeah, we have looked into several applications of blockchain that are particularly relevant in South Africa, specifically one company that was started out of our Masters in Financial Technology program is called Registry, that works with universities and employers in South Africa to help our students find jobs by being able to verify their university credentials. And that's quite useful because when you can verify your credentials, what master's program you've done, what marks you have gotten, and you can take them with you, and you can sort of, as you move from one employer to another, you can show, oh, this is all the qualifications that I have accumulated over, a lifetime of employment. It becomes something that is very valuable as data because it allows you to have it easier to find a job further down the line because you have this history of verified credentials, which is another use case where blockchain is particularly useful. And that's something that we've launched successfully. We have had students that found jobs because they were included in a platform like this, and that were able to find employers to which they otherwise would have had no access. There's a national strategy in South Africa around blockchain that's part of the South African National Blockchain Alliance, where the deeds registry that Mathias mentioned earlier is a particularly important point. The credentials that our student company looked into is an important point, but also to use blockchain to help smallholder farmers across Africa to take the data that they generate in their normal business operations, make it accessible to financial institutions, make it accessible to the public to strengthen the trust in the food that you get. So you really use blockchain in a variety of settings where data and information becomes important to solve frictions and problems that other forms of mechanisms can't solve.
And a pity, I think we've lost Julian Kanjere, who's a blockchain entrepreneur, because I wanted to ask him in terms of, his interest and also how he has been using this particular technology, the application thereof in his entrepreneurial endeavors. If we get him back, we certainly will put him on. But just coming back to Veronoque Haller, just with regard to, once again, the project that was launched in Cape Town yesterday. Tell us a little bit more about that, because seen very jubilant scenes, and I think once the light goes off about this particular sort of technology and innovation, people do get very excited about it, but that notwithstanding, it is something that's quite difficult to get your head around.
Yes, that's true. But what we have done, and the reason why we came to Cape Town, it's because it's a continuation of the engagement of Switzerland in South Africa in terms of blockchain, and it started in 2019. Where Switzerland is one of the, it's the hub number one in terms of blockchain. And when we talk about blockchain in Switzerland, we do not only talk about the startup or the company. We talk about the entire ecosystem around it, which includes government, it includes academic institutions, it includes the private sector, it includes investors, and we thought. South Africa has embraced the fourth industrial revolution, and that already way before the pandemic. So we thought, there might be the framework conditions here in South Africa as well, and we can help to foster them and bring some of the knowledge and some of the ideas that we had to South Africa. So we started with Mathias Ruch from SABC coming and doing we did some events in Johannesburg, in Cape Town. And then one of the role of the embassy is to connect the actors from different sectors to come together, see the potential, and make something out of that potential. And I think with that pragmatism, that is typically for the way Switzerland work, we were then able to use the existing instruments that we have between Switzerland and South Africa, and Co-Pierre alluded to it, the joint research programs, and a couple of other instruments that we do have, like the Swiss South African Business Development Program, to use those institutional instruments and build upon them, to use also, for example, the Economic Development Corporation that we have here to strengthen the private sector, bring all these instruments together, and together with CVVC, come here and build an ecosystem, blockchain ecosystem in South Africa.
Julian Kanjere is back with us. Julian, thanks so much for getting back on. And of course, I wanted to hear from you as an entrepreneur, how you are using this innovation and this innovative technology in your entrepreneurial space.
Cool. Good morning, and thanks for having us. So as Co-Pierre mentioned, I've completed the Masters in Financial Technology at the University of Cape Town. This is where my blockchain journey began. And following that, we've launched Footprint, which is a digital marketplace that's connecting smallholder farmers to agri-buyers and service providers. And the idea really here is that we are trying to give agency back to smallholder farmers, give them credible production records that are based on the blockchain. And then using this production record, they can then access new markets and services that were previously inaccessible. We're also giving them identities, which helps, again, with connecting them to other markets and so forth. So what we've done is we've created this in a way that's accessible to smallholder farmers. We've created a WhatsApp chatbot. Right? So this is something that is relevant in an African context to say, let's give them a platform that's already familiar, that's easy to use. They don't have to download a new app altogether. And then that connects them to a bigger system that other players in the value chain, in the food value chain, will be able to use.
How do you make money, though, Julian? Because, many people would say, young people watching would say, okay, where's the money in all of this?
That's a very good question. This is, the business model, something that we've battled with. At the moment, what we're looking at is we offer this chatbot for free to farmers. and then we leverage a service fee. We charge a service fee on our marketplace when produce is purchased between, say, cooperatives such as agri-hubs and your bigger buyers, your retailers, and so forth. So we then charge a service fee for that matchmaking capability. That's our current hypothesis. We're still testing this out, and it may evolve as time goes on.
Right, we're unfortunately out of time, but I obviously want to just quickly touch on cryptocurrency, Professor Pierre Georg. Just with regard to that, when we talk, because for some reason we still haven't wrapped our heads around it, but cryptocurrency, many people thought this would have gone away by now, but I see governments now coming on board, sensing that they have to find some sort of regulation around this. Cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, just very briefly for the benefit of our viewers, how does all of this work?
Well, cryptocurrencies use the blockchain to keep a ledger of who owes what to whom. I think for the viewers, the most important thing to take away is if you can't afford to lose money that you invest into cryptocurrencies, don't invest. These markets are volatile, and now with new regulation and governments coming in, South Africa is actually a leader in this, with the Reserve Bank looking into central bank digital currencies. This will become more stable, and the ecosystem will evolve, and markets will become more like normal markets. And then it becomes a new type of asset class that can be very exciting and very interesting. But until then, there's volatility to be expected, and caution is warranted.
I tell you what, we'll park it here because I do want to talk about cryptocurrency a little more in depth at the later stage. But thank you so much for speaking to the collaboration and blockchain technology and the launch that happened yesterday at UCT. Professor Co-Pierre Georg, who is a professor at UCT FinTech and Blockchain. Mathias Ruch is the CEO and founder at CVVC. Veronoque Haller is deputy head of the mission at the Swiss Embassy here in South Africa. And Julian Kanjere, blockchain entrepreneur. And I tell you what, I've even come across a company, an insurance company, that now gives you insurance for cryptocurrency. And as I say, it's something that I want to pick up on at a later stage. But with that, it's time for the latest news.